I am not going to be a person who spends their entire existence on the battlefield. And go ahead, Google battlefield for the Lord and see what songs people were writing about that. This stuff is shocking. I thought my songs were weird. I would never, ever put "Ain't Gonna Study More No More." That's even better than I could come up with. That song's good. I thought it was stupid. I thought it was like those guys with the straw hats and the striped vests that play at Disneyland. They play that song. You know, I was like, oh, don't play "Down by the Riverside." That song sucks. Well, that song is outrageous, powerful doctrine written from the perspective of someone who has lived and died in the battlefield for the Lord. And as someone who's obviously dedicated their life to do that, I was really impressed. I was like, wow, I thought I was the best songwriter of all time. I am not. I will have to be, like, after the top 10, I could be number 11. I'll be number 11. But the good news is 1 through 10 are all dead, and I'm going to steal all their songs. And isn't that sad? We don't even know who wrote these things. We don't even know who wrote these things. They have been passed around in oral tradition, and we don't know where they even came from. But it was shocking to me to see how spiritual that was. Especially that asinine "Down by the Riverside" song. That it was about something. That it mattered. That someone sat down and created this work of expression from their heart, and it was about something. It wasn't "My Darling Clementine." You know, and what has struck me is, first and foremost, how spiritual the whole world is now compared to how it was when I first became a Christian. That everybody's got some kind of spirituality, and it's a safeguard. I'm spiritual but not religious. We invented that. I want you to know that. I want you to know the Christians invented that. That happened in the 80s. That happened in the 80s when there was a wave, right after the Jesus movement of the 70s. There was a wave of the Holy Spirit pouring down on the churches, and the churches started saying, we have to come up with something, because everyone's saying we're becoming super religious. So the churches started preaching, we're becoming super spiritual. We're spiritual, not religious. Religion is man's attempt to get to God, and Christianity is God's attempt to get to man. This stuff all came out in the 80s. Now the whole world uses the term, I'm spiritual but not religious. And yet, if you talk about any kind of work of darkness, it's unspiritual and it's negative. Well, isn't negative part of being spiritual? Aren't there negative spirits? Isn't there negative spirituality? Apparently, only if we don't talk about it. I think America had already lived through that. It was bad for America not to talk about its evil, but again, that's for another night. My concern is that we associate spiritual with pretty and nice and clean and safe, and God associates spiritual with blood and guts and battle and struggle and challenge. And of course, the worst part about that is whenever anything bad happens to anyone, we think they're in trouble. You know, we think the worst has occurred because they weren't spiritual enough. If you're sick, you're not spiritual enough. You know, you're not praying enough, or you don't have enough faith to be healed. What struck me when I read this today was that God addressed that every single where His people would go, they would meet with struggle, they would meet with battle, and they would meet with this spiritual component. And how unspiritual we as a people are. I think it's interesting, in Jesus' day, people walked around and they were possessed by demons and nobody thought anything of it. Yet now, unless it's being televised, exorcisms don't really happen. And how would our children navigate through life if we didn't tell them to check their Halloween candy? If we didn't tell them to look both ways before they cross the street? If we didn't tell them to ask who is it when someone knocks at the door? I could really name a lot, but I think you understand. We are spiritually navigating the same way if we don't believe there's an enemy of our soul. And looking at the very beginning, there has always been an evil component battling with God that goes beyond human flesh. Imagine if you were driving somewhere tonight and God said, well, what I want you to do is talk about evil tonight. I want you to remind people there's a devil. I want you to spook them a little. Spook them out in TV land, you know? I don't know. If it were me, I'd be uncomfortable. I'd be like, oh, come on, man. I'm doing like 10 songs I haven't done either before or the way I'm doing it or in a long time. Is there any way we could at least make one part of the evening comfortable for me? Yeah, the part when you go home and eat Oreos. Until then, you're not going to be comfortable tonight. I want to close simply by saying that I think God is obvious. Why isn't evil obvious to the people who know God's obvious? That's my question. I want to know why it never dawned on me that there was bad. Wait a minute. I really got there was bad. My dad's an attorney. I saw such awful things growing up because of the kind of cases my dad would try. I learned so much about evil, and everybody knows I'm obsessed with horror movies. I've seen nothing but bad. But why didn't I ever equate bad with spiritual bad? You know what I'm saying? Why didn't I ever say there's something evil afoot? Man, I remember The Exorcist happened when I was 10. And for those of you who don't know, I do know it by heart. It's that and Grease. I know them by heart. It's kind of weird. I think they're similar. But but seriously, I would read this and I was like, I don't know. Why didn't it dawn on me like this was real? I knew it was real scary. And I know when I saw the movie, it wasn't funny anymore, that I couldn't like joke about it. I remember when I saw The Exorcist, when it first came out, and I sat there going, I don't think this is like fun. I don't know. I was scared so deeply. But why didn't I ever equate evil with spiritual? I remember seeing it on film going, well, if what they're praying about is real, that's something invisible. I don't think I knew the word spiritual. I knew what invisible meant. Therefore, what they're fighting must be invisible as well. But what they're fighting makes this girl look ugly and do all these weird things, and she's barfing all over them. Where's the other part that they're praying to? Why isn't Jesus standing in the room? Why isn't Jesus standing in the room? And I remember, I'm 10, and I remember watching this going, this is serious stuff, man. This isn't a joke. You know, all I'd seen up to that point was like the seventh voyage of Sinbad, and I thought Cyclops was scary, you know. This was pretty heavy stuff. But when I became a Christian and I was filled with the Spirit, he said, emphasizing, all this made so much sense. And I was like, wow. First off, it's all very visible to me. Second off, did I mention it's all visible to me? That's radical. It's like, can I take these glasses off at some point and not see this world? And why is it that spiritual is always light and positive, and evil is always energy? I love that. I love that. It's just energy. But anything spiritual is spirit. Anything bad, you know, is energy. Well, I think we all know better. I think God is evident. I think Satan is evident.